Mr. President, 2 weeks ago, I came to the floor to request unanimous consent for the Senate to take up and confirm 6 U.S. attorneys and 2 U.S. Marshal nominations. These nominees are all highly qualified. They have critical law enforcement experience, and they want to serve this country at new levels. They were voted out of the Judiciary Committee, which I chair, by a voice vote. They have the support of their home state senators. They have the support of other local law enforcement. They deserve to be confirmed. We need them right now, without further delay. And the obvious question is, why are they being held up? Why are these dedicated men and women, not yet in office, ready to tackle violent crime, which we know is a problem across America? Why aren't they in office to prosecute fraud and terrorism? Why aren't they there to protect families and children across America? One reason: junior senator from Arkansas. You see, when I made my unanimous consent request, a request joined by the majority leader and the senators from all the affected states, one senator objected. Only one senator refused to allow these individuals confirmation so that they could continue to serve this nation in the cause of law enforcement. And that same senator, the junior senator from Arkansas, continues to engage in this mindless obstruction, jeopardizing the safety of communities outside of Arkansas for reasons which are still hard to understand. Why is the junior senator blocking well-qualified individuals from law enforcement? What has he got against law enforcement at this moment in America's history? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the nominees themselves or their qualifications. We've asked him over and over. He has no complaint about any single one of them. He just happened to pick these people out as his political targets. He's concerned about a completely unrelated issue. Let me tell you what it is. In the summer of 2020, federal law enforcement personnel were dispatched to Portland, Oregon, to help protect the federal courthouse. A number of those federal officers now face lawsuits relating to the events that happened there. The Department of Justice often represents federal employees who are sued in their individual capacity. Under governing regulations, the Department of Justice goes through a process to determine that such representation would be, quote, in the interest of the United States. And in this matter, Department of Justice has either represented or paid for the representation of more than 70 law enforcement officials who've been sued. The department has declined to represent one individual, only one, and continues to review 3 additional requests for representation. The senator from Arkansas says he wants to know why, but the Department of Justice has made it clear it can't comment on these 4 cases. Remember what you first learned when you were elected to the United States Senate and somebody came to you and said, I would need for you to be my advocate, I need for you to be my champion? You said to them, I'd like to do it, but first you've got to sign a privacy waiver, a confidentiality waiver. I can't represent you or talk about you unless I have that waiver. Last time we came to the floor, I asked the junior senator from Arkansas, have these 3 who are being under review, for example, these federal employees, given you a privacy waiver? Can you tell us what the circumstances are that have slowed it down? No. So here he is, their champion and advocate, and they don't trust him with a privacy waiver, or they'd rather the circumstances not become public. They made that decision. It's pretty complicated in a way. The bottom line is, who's paying for this complication and this stalling tactic? Innocent people. 6 U.S. attorneys, 2 U.S. Marshals, not in the state of Arkansas. The Department of Justice has made it clear it can't comment on these cases, quote, in light of significant confidentiality interest and applicable privileges. The senator from Arkansas is hearing none of it. For example, DOJ's regulations make it clear that communications about an employee's request for representation are protected by an attorney-client privilege. The senator from Arkansas wants us to ignore that. And the Privacy Act prevents the Department of Justice from disclosing personal records related to an employee without their consent. Unless things have changed in the last 2 weeks, the senator who is advocating for these people, have never received that. He's never received those consents. These privileges protect the privacy of the very law enforcement personnel whose interests the junior senator from Arkansas claims to represent. The senator claims to be speaking on behalf of these deputy marshals, but he's asking the Justice Department to violate legal privileges and attorney-client privileges that are designed to specifically protect them and other federal employees. It's important to add that it's standard practice for any member of Congress to obtain a Privacy Act. We've done it thousands of times in our office. An act this gives a waiver for a constituent authorizing the office to make inquiries on their behalf. Apparently, the senator from Arkansas doesn't have that waiver, or he'd explain to us what the circumstances are. It seems that the people he wants to protect don't trust him with that information or don't want it to become public. The senator is upset that the Justice Department is following the law in a process required by their own rules and regulations, a process that now affects 4 individuals. And his response is to block the confirmation of every U.S. attorney and every U.S. Marshal on the Senate calendar. How can you claim, as he does, to be tough on crime if you're blocking well-qualified law enforcement officials from serving because of a grievance that has nothing to do with them personally? The junior senator from Arkansas should let these law enforcement officials do their job. Often we hear the complaint, oh, they want to defund the police. Well, you heard last night when President Biden said we need to fund the police and got a standing ovation from everybody. But this is a new approach. Instead of defunding the police, this one senator is going to stop law enforcement from even doing their job. For example, yesterday, I chaired a hearing in the Judiciary Committee. We examined how the federal government can help prevent and respond to the surge in carjackings across America over the last 2 years. It was an important bipartisan hearing with witnesses from law enforcement, community groups, automobile industry, testifying about solutions to a problem that is an urgent issue in many of our communities, and testifying to the need for U.S. attorneys to enforce the law in their jurisdictions. The same junior senator from Arkansas who is leaving these U.S. attorney spots vacant because he's unhappy with the way he's being treated by the Department of Justice didn't attend the hearing. And he's blocking votes on the federal law enforcement nominees charged with helping to protect our communities from carjacking and other violent crimes. How can that be anything other than soft on law and order? Before I proceed to my unanimous consent request, I want to note the overwhelming support these U.S. attorneys and U.S. Marshal nominees have from law enforcement professionals in their states. We're receiving dozens of letters because of this outrageous hold by the senator from Arkansas. Letters that speak not just the nominees' qualifications, but the need to confirm them now. Consider the support of Chief LaDon Reynolds of the Oak Park Police Department, nominated to be the U.S. Marshal in the Northern District of Illinois. Senator Duckworth and I have received letters from the Director of the Illinois State Police and police chiefs in towns and cities like Park Ridge, Hazelcrest, Calumet Park. It's unanimous. Chief Reynolds is a man for the job, and he's waiting and waiting and waiting on the junior senator from Arkansas. The Senate's also received letters of support for several of the other nominees who face this needless blockade. Aaron Ford, the Attorney General of Nevada, has written in support of Jason Frierson to be the state's U.S. attorney. Both senators from Nevada took the floor last time we brought this issue up and supported him. The chiefs of police of Rochester, Duluth, St. Paul, Minnesota, have joined the sheriff of Ramsey County, Minnesota, urging the Senate to quickly confirm Andrew Lugar as Minnesota's U.S. attorney and Eddie Frizzell to be the state's U.S. Marshal. Mark Totten, nominated to be U.S. attorney for the Western District of Michigan, has the support of county prosecutors and sheriffs throughout the state, as well as from Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel and the Michigan Association of Police Organizations. And the sheriff of DeKalb County, Georgia, urges the Senate to swiftly confirm Ryan Buchanan to be U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. These law enforcement officials want reinforcement. We have the professionals to take over these positions now. One senator holds them up. There are just a few examples of the broad bipartisan support these nominees enjoy. These state and local law enforcement officials know how eminently qualified the nominees are, and they've told us as much. They know we can't and shouldn't waste another day supporting law enforcement. They know it's time for the Senate to act now. And so, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations en bloc: calendar numbers 660, 661, 662, 663, 739, 740, 741, 742. That the Senate vote on the nominations en bloc without intervening action or debate. The motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. That any statements related to the nominations be printed in the record. That the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Senator from Arkansas.
I'll reserve the right to object because here we are again, 2 weeks later, and nothing's changed. The Democrats in the Department of Justice, once again, want their well-connected and wealthy political nominees confirmed while the Department of Justice hangs out to dry 4 career law enforcement officers and threatens them with fiscal ruin and bankruptcy. The senator from Illinois said, I'm having none of it. You're absolutely right, I'm having none of it. These officers, I remind you, faced down left-wing street militias for months in Portland. They were attacked with blinding lasers, ball bearings, Molotov cocktails. There was efforts to lock them into the courthouse and set it afire and burn them alive. Now, the senator from Illinois keeps saying that my objections are completely unrelated, that was his words, or nothing to do with these nominees. We've heard this now for weeks. I don't know why he keeps repeating it. I'll give my answer once again. I'm not making an objection to some random unconnected agency. I'm not upset that the Corps of Engineers didn't approve a water project in Arkansas. I'm not making some doomed to fail demand like Merrick Garland should resign in disgrace, though he should. I'm making a very specific point about this department. If Merrick Garland and the Democrats want their political nominees to be confirmed on a fast-track basis, then they need to protect their career law enforcement officers from financial ruin and bankruptcy. I've talked to these officers. The anxiety and the stress that this has created for them is real. They have received no explanation whatsoever beyond not in the interest of the United States. That is not an explanation, that is a conclusion. 3 of them haven't heard anything at all. It's been months, actually more than a year. The senator from Illinois said the Department of Justice often represents law enforcement officers sued for actions in the line of duty. It's not often represents, it's almost always represents. I've spoken with multiple former Department of Justice leaders. They say they cannot remember a time when they declined to represent a law enforcement officer sued for actions in the line of duty. The senator from Illinois, once again, waves around the idea of a privacy waiver like it's a big gotcha or something. I don't have a privacy waiver. But I know what these officers would say. They'd say, we have no idea what the department would tell us. So if the senator from Illinois would like me to be a good bureaucrat and run off and get a privacy waiver, I guess I could do that. And then once they gave it to me, I'd ask them, why'd you get denied coverage? And they'd say, I don't know, they won't tell us anything. The point of the matter here is that career law enforcement officers are being hung out to dry and facing financial ruin, and they cannot get an answer. We cannot get an answer. Now, is it possible they engaged in misconduct? Sure. It happens. However, I note, as I did last time, that all 4 officers are on unrestricted active duty. Unrestricted active duty. 3 are in the Special Operations Group. 1 is in the Warrant Group. Both assignments likely to result in situations where the threat of violence and even lethal violence is high. If these officers somehow acted inappropriately in Portland to the point we can't represent them when they're sued by left-wing activists, surely they shouldn't be serving high-risk warrants. Surely they shouldn't be out on the street in the Special Operations Group. So I can only infer that's not the case. The Department of Justice won't tell us anything more. They won't tell these officers anything more. None of these facts has changed. Nothing in 2 weeks. The only thing we know, that we didn't know 2 weeks ago actually, is that 3 of these marshals received an award for their service in Portland. This is the award that was given out to marshals who risked their lives in defense of the federal courthouse in Portland. I blurred out the names to protect the safety of those marshals, but I assure you, their names are on there. They received an award for their service. They're being sued for that very service, and the Department of Justice won't represent them. They deserve answers. The senator from Illinois said that last night the president spoke about funding the police after the Democrats spoke for years about defunding the police. Well, I have a suggestion. How about funding these officers' legal defenses? How about that for funding the police? Stand by the law enforcement officers who did their job and who can't not get an explanation for why Merrick Garland is not standing by them. And until that happens, I guess we can keep coming down here every week or 2 weeks, because they deserve to be represented, or we deserve a credible, fact-based explanation. Now, I'm just one senator. I can't block these people forever. We could have a vote on them. We were in session yesterday for 10 hours. We didn't have a single vote. On Monday night, we voted on late-term partial birth abortion. These are so important, we could have a vote on them. Or the Department of Justice could just do what it should, which is right and moral. It should represent law enforcement officers who are being sued for actions in the line of duty, or it should give them an explanation for why they're not. So, Mr. President, I do object, and I'll continue to object until that happens.
Mr. President.
The objection is heard.
Right
The majority
and moral?
whip.
Right and moral? Is it right and moral to deny law enforcement officials? Senator's now leaving the floor. Is it right and moral to deny these law enforcement officials an opportunity to serve across the United States? I listened carefully. I was waiting for him to spell out, Senator from Arkansas, who just walked off the floor, his objection as to the qualifications of these law enforcement officers. He has none. There are none. These men he calls political appointees. The same thing happened under the Trump administration. Over 85 of their U.S. attorneys were approved by voice vote with no delay. One was held over for 1 week. That was it. And yet he has made a crusade of this to try to stop these individuals from serving in the states where they're desperately needy. Senator from Arkansas is blocking the confirmation of these individuals and at the same time calling the Democrats soft on law and order. Go figure. Don't lecture me on law and order if you're coming to the floor to prevent qualified law enforcement professionals from helping the Justice Department combat violent crime. The reason I come to the floor and will continue to come to the floor is because we have a serious crime problem in my state and in the city of Chicago. I want to have the U.S. Marshal there on the job doing everything he's supposed to do to help local and state law enforcement bring down the violence and the death rate. The senator from Arkansas just doesn't seem to understand basic law. The Department of Justice has an attorney-client privilege with these individuals as they review their cases. He's been unable to get a waiver so that he can even tell us publicly what the complaint might be by the Department of Justice from the viewpoint of those federal officials. He can't do it, but it's good enough for him that they're under review to stop all other U.S. attorneys and marshals across the United States. Is this what America wants to see in Washington? This kind of obstruction? I think not. It doesn't take political courage to harm an innocent person. And what the senator from Arkansas has done is to harm individuals who simply want to serve America and make it safer. My Republican colleagues frequently claim to be the party of law and order, but in this matter, they're the ones playing politics with law enforcement.